The NBA is in a fucking juicy spot right now with plenty of talent across the board and a lot of teams who have realistic championship ambitions. Today, I'm going to be discussing why each contender won't win the 2023 NBA championship. Obviously not saying that these things will happen, but rather these are each team's biggest weaknesses and will likely be the reason why they get eliminated if they do get eliminated. Now, I will only be covering teams that I believe are contenders this season, and as good as, the teams like the Kings, the Knicks, or the Pelicans with Zion have been, realistically, they're not going to have a very good chance of winning it all. So if you guys do enjoy the video, I would really appreciate it if you can hit that like and subscribe button to help my channel grow, so I can get those sweet views from the YouTube algorithm. But without any further ado, in the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks, their inability to contain Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the Celtics' three-point shooting. Now, as a Celtics fan, I must admit, if the Bucks are able to defend the Celtics' three-point shooting and, somewhat limit Tatum and Brown, which is a lot easier said than done, then it's a fucking wrap for the rest of the league. I do think that the Bucks are the most complete team in the NBA, but all bias aside, this season it just seems like the Celtics are somewhat their kryptonite. And although the Bucks do possess the league's third best defense with a team full of great individual defenders, led by obviously Brook Lopez, Giannis, and Drew Holiday, they've had some difficulty containing Tatum and Brown in those three games. This season, Tatum is averaging 40.5 points, making 5.5 threes per game, shooting 64.7% from three against the Bucks, and Jaylen Brown is averaging 29.5 points, averaging 4 made threes per game, and shooting 57.1% from three. In the three games the Celtics have played against the Bucks this season, the Celtics have made 22, 19, and 17 threes in each of those games. And overall, the Celtics won that season series 2-1, with the only loss being a road game in Milwaukee, where the Celtics were without Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and Al Horford, which is 4 starters. Now, having that one seed and home court advantage is absolutely huge for the Bucks, seeing as the Celtics had that advantage last season and they did end up winning Game 7 in Boston. Regardless, I do think that whoever wins this series will go on to win it all, and the only way I see the Bucks not getting that job done is if they can't slow down that Celtics offense. The Boston Celtics, quite plainly, Jason Tatum plays like shit. Jason Tatum's play is the most important factor for the Celtics making another championship run. And of all superstars in the NBA, Tatum's ceiling is as high as anyone's, but his floor when his shots aren't falling is extremely low. He'll have games where he's shooting 6 of 20 or 4 of 15 from the field, and then spends a lot of time complaining to the refs instead of running back on D, which makes him a real liability. Now, he has shown that he can impact the game when his shot isn't falling, because you just have to look no further than Game 1 of the NBA Finals last season against Golden State, when he shot 3 of 17 from the field, but dished out 13 assists for 2 turnovers and played elite defense. However, he isn't someone like LeBron or Giannis who can just routinely impact the game, in any other way, in a variety of ways when his shot isn't falling, and he does have a tendency to settle for bad shot after bad shot, which can often do the Celtics more harm than good. There's also other factors which impact Tatum's play. He's been dealing with an ongoing wrist injury, and he clearly struggled after re-aggravating it against the Pacers earlier this season. He's also 3rd in minutes per game and 4th in total minutes played this season, and you do have to wonder if that workload throughout the 82-game season will catch up to him in the playoffs. On a positive note though, after playing like shit since the All-Star break, it is promising to see that Tatum has gone back to his usual self, at least in the last 5 games, averaging over 35 points, shooting 60% from the field and 48.8% from 3. The Philadelphia 76ers, Doc Rivers' coaching, and James Harden playing like shit. This one's a lot more straightforward. I think 76ers fans have been fucking pissed at Doc Rivers and wanted him fired for as long as I can remember. Despite having a great bench on paper with guys like Anthony Melton, Shake Milton, Daniel House, George Niang, Montrezl Harrell, Paul Reed, Doc Rivers' rotations have simply sucked. Staggering your star players is a very simple concept, yet Rivers will have moments where he plays an all-bench lineup and doesn't make any adjustments when they start getting fucking torched. In addition to that, we all know James Harden has a reputation for not showing up in the playoffs, and last season, he averaged, only 18.6 points, 5.7 rebounds, 8.6 assists, shooting 40.5% from the field, which is below his standard. Now, he has looked great overall this season as that Robin to Embiid's Batman, and he is leading the league in assists at 10.8 a game, but can he do it when it matters? He simply doesn't have that same explosiveness and athleticism that he once had in Houston, which made him, one of, if not the most dangerous scorers in the NBA. So you can't really count on him to really explode for even 30 points, more than 1, maybe 2 games in a 7-game series. So overall, I think, if the 76ers do get bounced out in the playoffs relatively early, which I do think is a very realistic scenario, it'll most likely be a combination of one, if not both of these things. The Cleveland Cavaliers, their over-reliance on their guard-heavy offense. The Cavs are extremely reliant on their backcourt of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell to generate nearly their entire offense, and I don't know how far that can get them in the playoffs. I think they are one big wing away from being among the elites in the NBA, and if one of Garland or Mitchell is having an off game, I think the Cavs are in big trouble. Overall, the Cavs this season are 26-25 when Garland records under 10 assists, compared to 8-3 when he records more than 10. And overall, when it comes to close games and clutch game situations, the Cavs are 23-21, with a clutch game situation being defined as a game that's within 5 points with under 5 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. And when the pace in the playoffs slows down and defenses are set, the question becomes, how can this backcourt continue to generate reliable offense in those close game situations? They haven't done it all season long, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it in the playoffs, especially when, like I mentioned, defenses are set. You're going to have, every single team throwing their best defenders, hounding, Garland and Mitchell 48 minutes a game, and you got rim protectors in the back as well. I just don't see that being very sustainable. I think they're maybe even one shot creator away. I know LeVert's pretty good, but he's too ball dominant, and in order for LeVert to be the most efficient, he takes touches away from Garland and Mitchell. And so I think they need a real off-ball threat who can create a shot when necessary. But until then, I think the Cavs, they just sneak under that, contender title for me. Over to the Western Conference. First up, the Denver Nuggets, their defense. Now, it's no secret that Nikola Jokic isn't a good defender, and the Nuggets as a whole aren't a great defensive team. They're currently 14th in defensive rating, and dating back to 1997, there have only been 2 teams to win an NBA championship without a top 10 defense. Those 2 teams were the 2018 KD Warriors and the 2001 Kobe Shaq Lakers. Both of these teams were also dynasties, which the Nuggets definitely aren't, which was already a huge red flag for the Nuggets' title hopes. This isn't an overnight fix for the Nuggets as well, as the front office will need to continue to build the right roster surrounding Jokic to ensure that, they can at least remain competitive and passable on the defensive end. Because right now, you look at their starting lineup, Jokic is obviously a poor defender, Michael Porter Jr. is a very poor defender, and Jamal Murray is probably average at best. And secondly, the Nuggets' bench is flat out terrible as well. So this is another key point too, their depth. Denver's bench is currently ranked 29th in net rating, ahead of only the San Antonio Spurs. Trade deadline acquisition Reggie Jackson has fallen out of the rotation, averaging only 6.4 points and 2.8 assists, shooting 33.7% from the field and 27.7% from 3 since being traded to the Nuggets. Similarly, Thomas Bryant, who was demanding a lot more minutes, has fallen out of the Nuggets as well, as the Nuggets, opt for more defense in Zeke Naji. And despite excelling in his role in LA, Bryant has only averaged 4.2 points and 3.1 rebounds per game for the Nuggets. So overall, defense is the biggest issue right now with the Nuggets, and until they really get that sorted, I just don't see them being, making a run into the NBA Finals or even out of the Western Conference. Next up, the Memphis Grizzlies, their lack of star power and being the villains of the NBA. The Grizzlies are overall a very well-rounded team, but when I look at them and the rest of their competition, I can't help but think, if they're maybe one piece away from being a true title contender and being in the elites of the NBA. You look at all the contenders that I have in this video, they all have at least 2 legit stars, except for maybe the Denver Nuggets. But then again, they have the 2-time MVP and one of the greatest offensive players in NBA history. The Grizzlies have Ja Morant, and that's it. I think Desmond Bane is very, very criminally underrated, but right now, I don't think he's the second best player on a championship team. And even though the Grizzlies have a great bench, with Tyus Jones, who I think is one of, if not the best backup point guard in the league, Luke Kennard, who can obviously flat out shoot, Santi Aldama and Xavier Tillman, this is a stars league, especially in the postseason, and that may come back to harm Memphis. I'm also, on that second point of being the villains of the NBA, I'm not too sure if that's even a valid point because there's no stats or anything behind it, but quite simply, all the shit talking that Dylan Brooks has been, dishing out this season is probably going to come back to bite the Grizzlies in the ass, because the Grizzlies now have a target on their back, and you look at teams like, the Warriors and Lakers, who Brooks has been, beefing a lot with in particular. I think they're going to be licking their lips at the idea of facing the Grizzlies in a 7-game series, and if that does happen, I'm not sure if Brooks and the Grizzlies are good enough or confident enough to actually overcome that pressure. So I do see that being a downfall for the Grizzlies. The Phoenix Suns, CP3 and KD's health. When healthy, the Suns are as good as anyone with the starting five of CP3, Devin Booker, Josh Okogie, KD, and DeAndre Ayton. And before you talk shit about Okogie, he's been fucking great all season and is exactly the type of player you want rounding out that starting five. He hustles, defends, and now he's learned how to shoot threes as well. The biggest question mark for the Suns team is the health of CP3 and KD, and their depth to a certain extent. CP3 is going to turn 38 years old in the playoffs, and although he's still a very good player right now, he's clearly on a decline, and I think he has maybe one, maybe two, good playoff runs left in him. KD, meanwhile, has only played in 45 games this season, dealing with a variety of injuries, including a sprained MCL and a sprained ankle. Now, some people have mentioned that the Suns' depth, as a potential issue come playoff time, but, with rotations tightening and coaches staggering their stars, I think that the Suns should be fine with all their plug-and-play guys. Like, they got a lot of shooters, with Shamet, Ross, scorers like TJ Warren, Corey Craig's pretty good, Cameron Payne, Damian Lee. So I think as long as they keep, any two of CP3, Booker, KD, or Ayton at the floor at any given time, they should be fine. I'd be more concerned about their health. The LA Clippers, Paul George's health, and Ty Lue's coaching. Now, Paul George's health is a huge X factor, and it's needless to say that the Clippers' playoff success almost hinges entirely on him, and it is reported that he'll most likely miss the first round of the playoffs, which is already not looking good. However, Ty Lue's coaching and rotations this season have been flat out terrible and leaves a lot to be desired even with the healthy PG. When I say that, firstly you have to look at Ty Lue's infatuation with Marcus Morris. Morris did have a very solid start to the season, averaging over 14 points and 5 rebounds, shooting at 37% from 3 in his first 20 games. But in his, as the season has progressed, and especially in the last 10 games, Morris has looked like a fucking traffic cone on defense and a complete black hole on offense, hogging the ball, taking contested mid-range shots, and averaging under 6 points per game, shooting 25% from 3. Meanwhile, Ty Lue's got Robert Covington rotting away on the bench, and Nicholas Batum is still averaging less minutes per game than Morris. If Lue was smart enough to play a combination of Batum, Covington, and Kawhi at the 4, that will open up, more positions for some of the other guys that they have, like Terrence Mann, who's played far better as a starter and is deserving of more minutes. Eric Gordon, Norm Powell, Bones Highland, whoever it may be. If Paul George comes back healthy and whole, and the Clippers get bounced early, I think it will definitely be because of Ty Lue's questionable rotations. I think overall the Clippers are just too stacked at all positions to not contend for a championship. The Golden State Warriors road play. I originally had Andrew Wiggins' availability as the key reason, but it's been announced that he is returning to the team, and man, he makes the Warriors fucking dangerous. I think for a team which won the championship last season, the Warriors have been disrespected by a lot of people, and now that they have a healthy team, they're a team that nobody really wants to face in the playoffs. I think the only one thing that's really holding them back, besides continuity and having guys, in and out of the lineup all season, and, is their road play, which is a well-documented issue for the Warriors. The Dubs are 32-8 at home, which is crazy good, but only 9-30 on the road, which is crazy bad. The return of Wiggins will 100% help this, and you have to give the Warriors a pass, since they are the defending champs and they have the Splash Brothers leading the team. But fixing their road play isn't an overnight fix, so I will be keeping an eye out to see how they, how the Warriors do adapt, playing on the road in the playoffs. Lastly, the Los Angeles Lakers, Anthony Davis's aggressiveness. You're probably thinking, what the fuck are the Lakers doing here as a contender? And I don't blame you. But in my eyes, as long as you have a healthy LeBron and AD, you're contenders. Especially when this new look Lakers squad is 6-0 with their LeBron, AD, and D'Angelo Russell big three. And overall, they're 14-6 in their last 20 games. This isn't the same Laker team which started the year 2-10. They're legitimately 10, maybe even 12 deep, with plenty of versatility on both ends of the floor. And their post-trade deadline team has chemistry as though they've been playing together for 5 years. The biggest question mark for me for this Laker team is Anthony Davis's aggressiveness, especially in big games. There are games where AD completely dominates and looks like the best player on the planet. And overall, I think AD has actually become somewhat underrated, and in my opinion, is deserving of an All-NBA spot this season. However, there are also times where AD just looks uninterested and plays soft as fuck. And, for some of these moments have come in must-win games for the Lakers. Now, 90% of this I do think will be fixed simply by having LeBron returning to the team and, the defending team not having to double AD every single time he touches the ball. Overall, I think if AD just locks in and plays like he did in the bubble, which we have seen a lot of this season as well, then the Lakers have good as a shot as anyone has come, in coming out of the West. So there you have it. That's my reasoning as to why each contender won't win the 2023 NBA championship. I mean, obviously one of them will, But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. You know, like and subscribe to really help out the channel. I do appreciate you guys a lot for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.